Hi, welcome to day 5 of America Reads, which is inspired by the PBS series that is going on right now. My name is Sally Brown, and my book that I chose is The Godfather, and that's right here. It's a fairly well-known book, probably, and there have been 3 movies made from it, and they're sequels, and so a lot of you are probably very familiar with it. What I'm going to do today is I chose it because I knew the author, and I think there's sort of a funny story behind that. And then I'm going to read an addition to the book that was added just a few years ago, written by his son, which points out sort of another way to look at the book. So if you're rereading it, I think you'll find it interesting when you hear what his view of what really inspired the book. So first, I guess I should tell you how I met Mario Puzo, the author. I was on a big diet program down at Durham, North Carolina, and after I'd been there a few months, he came in and was looking for somebody to play tennis with, and I had just gotten the okay to play tennis again after many months recovering from a surgery on my arm. And so the doctor that ran the program introduced him and me. So I had really no idea who he was. He was this short, stocky Italian man from New York is all I knew about him and everything. And so we went out to, we played tennis, and we played pretty well, and we went out to, for about 3 weeks we would play tennis every day in August in rubber suits, because it was absolutely so important that we lost at least, we had to lose weight every day, and we were weighed every day. So it was very stringent. So we're out there in the summer, in August heat in North Carolina, playing in rubber suits. So we finished one day, and we went to sit down in the shade at the end of the courts, and Mario said, Sally, would you mind, the Chapel Hill newspaper wants to come take a picture of me playing tennis. Would you mind? And I was like, take a picture of playing tennis? And I said, why? And he said, well, I'm a guest professor at Chapel Hill this summer. And I said, oh, what are you teaching? And he said, creative writing. I mean, remember, I had no idea who this guy was, and other than he was from New York. And so I said, oh, well, no, I don't mind, that's fine. And so he said, you don't know who I am, do you? And I said, Mario is all I know. And he said, well, I'm Mario Puzo, and I have the #1 bestseller book on the New York Times bestseller list for 25 weeks. And I said, oh, well, this is wonderful. No wonder they want to take your picture. So that was done, and it was just sort of a funny incident. And he was very nice. The next day, he brought me a copy of the book, and he signed it to, Dear Sally, thank you for letting me win an occasional game or two. Love, Mario. So it was great to know, and he was always a wonderful gentleman, very gentle kind of guy. So when I read the book, I was a little bit shocked with how rough it was, but I think that the son's introduction to the book will kind of, or a note that he's written for the introduction will kind of explain to you why. Anyway, so I'll begin reading that. 53 years ago, his son is Anthony Puzo, and he wrote this, I think in 2016, so just a couple of years ago. 53 years ago this month, the idea for The Godfather was born. Tired of being broke and in debt, my father vowed to write a bestseller. When his 2 previous novels received terrific reviews but didn't make a penny, he realized it was time to grow up and sell out. Or, as his family, friends, and creditors admonished him, time to put up and shut up, or shut up. His publisher wanted a book about the mafia. This book is set in the 60s when there was a lot of, well, it was written in the 60s, and when there was a lot of going after mafia organizations and stuff, and there were a lot of television shows about it and stuff. So it was, a hot seller as far as a publisher is concerned. So the publisher wanted a book about the mafia, but there was one problem. My father often said that he was embarrassed that he had never met an honest-to-God gangster. But he had many stories as a boy growing up in Hell's Kitchen, and he had read many volumes of books on the subject. Fortified by the transcripts he requested from the Library of Congress, which were about all the arrests and judgments and everything that were being given, and he was fortified by the transcripts he requested from the Library of Congress. The Valachi hearings had concluded. He felt confident he could write a novel depicting the mafia in a new light. My father's unique and ultimately brilliant idea to base The Godfather on family values was the key to its success. He believed that nobody had more family values than Italians. That's why he claimed they are so good at being in the mafia. What is The Godfather, he often said, but a heartwarming story about a family with a great, solid family values. In Italian neighborhoods, you would call a close friend of your parents compare or godfather. Nobody ever used godfather in reference to criminals, not even the mafia. The term didn't exist until my father's book. The fact that they kill people once in a while, well, just bad people, he found amusing. Also, wouldn't everybody love to have somebody to go to for justice without going through the courts? Through his characters, my father heard the voices of his brothers and sisters. The Don, strangely enough, was based on my grandmother. Whenever the Don opened his mouth, my father said that in his own mind he heard the voice of his mother. He heard her wisdom, ruthlessness, and unconquerable love for her family. The Don's courage and loyalty came from her. Like the Don, she could be extremely warm or extremely ruthless. The success of The Godfather was phenomenal, beyond my father's wildest dream. #1 on the New York Times bestseller list for many months. He had written the bestseller that he had vowed to write. My father was criticized for glamorizing the mafia, but he felt that if you were a true novelist, your first duty was to tell a story. If you wanted to moralize, write nonfiction. My father always wished he had worked harder. He had always thought of himself as goofing off. He loved writing above all, maybe not as much as his family. He was Italian after all. But he ultimately realized that creating The Godfather and many other fine novels was not such a bad legacy. Anthony Puzo. So, thank you for attending Read The Godfather. It's a quick read because it's incredibly engaging, and thanks to the inspiration of PBS for the America Reads. 100 days, 100 people, 100 books, and look at the sign. Keep, Richmond, keep reading.